Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it is our favorite time of the week where we take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed our Blade Show coverage last weekend. Thomas and I had a blast, as always, running around the show, getting to talk to as many cool people as we could. If we didn't get to your favorite company, the problem with Blade Show is there is never enough time to hit everybody we'd like to. But in any case, hope you enjoyed what we brought to you folks. And we'll have a video soon for the customs that we picked up from that show. But in the meantime, all of this stuff right now, regular production run items. Actually, let me make sure of that. Yes, in general. No custom one-offs anyway, at least on this table. Let's take a look at what we've got. First things first, KnifeCenter exclusive, the latest Kershaw Leek. Now, you may have seen kind of an orange handled Kershaw Leek before, but this one's a little bit different in that we have an S35 VN blade on this flipper. Very cool. Comes in just under $90 for it right now. 3-inch blade, black washed, finished on that S35 VN. And since this is a particle steel, whenever Kershaw puts a particle steel on this knife, it is a flat grind as opposed to a hollow grind. So keep that in mind. I like that. The orange looks fantastic, and for a first on any Leek and possibly on any Kershaw, at least any US made Kershaw that I can think of, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but we have a black washed clip as well to match the blade finish. Very nice. Apart from that, this is pure blood Leek through and through. Nice slim carry in the pocket, just enough handle for most folks, speed safe assisted opening, and that modified Wharncliffe shape, which makes it a fantastic piercer and just an agile little cutter as an everyday carry. Very cool, American made knife, American made premium steel, all coming in for $90. Next up, we have a restock of this next exclusive, the Peña X Series Apache front flipper. Very cool knife, comes in about $274 for this one. M390 blade steel on these with a reverse tanto blade shape. Actually, for a reverse tanto, this actually is very sheep's foot-ish, I must say. But in any case, we'll call it a modified sheep's foot because there's a little bit of belly, but if you go to the website, it'll say reverse tanto, so I apologize. M390 blade steel, about 2.8 inches long, with a kind of a 2/3, 3/4 height flat grind on that blade stock there. Really cool utilitarian blade shape, very accommodating handle, kind of similar to the Leek, not in its actual shape, but in that it is a shape that works well across hand sizes. Most folks, your pinky's probably going to fall right off the edge of the beak right there, and there's just enough to grab onto that all 4 fingers are on the knife, even if it's not a full grip, but then choke up a little bit, and I can still get a good kind of hammer grip on this knife, even with my slightly larger than average hands. And the exclusive bit here, this burnt orange canvas micarta, which starts out a little bit lighter. As it darkens, as it kind of picks up the character of the oils from your skin, that sort of thing, it takes on a really nice red, kind of dark reddish character that I'm quite taken with. Bolster style frame lock there, and a top flipper, as I like to call it, because it's not really exclusively a front flipper, which means you can thumb flick it open, means you can also index finger flick it open because of its top kind of orientation. Very, very cool knife, back in stock now. All right, next up is not an exclusive, but KnifeCenter is the first dealer to have gotten these outside of the original company's own distribution channels. This is the Arcform Slimfoot. Just coined the phrase Arcfoot?
Cool.
Maybe.
What's more like a modified cleaver?
Silence has gone on long enough. Arcform Slimfoot Flipper. 3 versions with fat carbon inlay. We have a red and a blue fat carbon. That's a red fat carbon and a blue fat carbon, not a red and blue mixture. Those are coming in about $380 with an M390 blade. This version right here with the white fat carbon. Comes with a Damasteel blade, so a powder metal Damascus product. Really high performance, really good looks. This one comes in at about $580 right now. You've got that 3.5-inch blade, the powder steel, that looks fantastic. Great looking inlay on the titanium handle, and of course a titanium frame lock on the back with that milled pocket clip. Very strong, very cool looking. Ball bearings in the pivot. So let's take a minute to appreciate how good that looks closed. Very, very clean, and then flips open really well. Got a hollow grind on this knife, which keeps the steel behind the edge a little bit thinner than if they flat grinded it, had flat ground it. Makes sense. And then we got that cool fuller up there as well. Actually, and I haven't tried this because I don't have a ton of experience with these. Let's see if I can use that fuller for an index finger flick. Nope, nope, nope. You might be able to, but I cannot. For me, that is a flipper all the way. Really cool, kind of heavy-duty looking shape, but heavy-duty but stylish. Maybe it's stylish first and then heavy-duty second. Let me know what you folks think. And then, of course, you could spend a lot less money on a Slimfoot if you don't want to go for the fancy version right here. Just let me check prices on those. We've got some about $280. Looks like that's about the floor for the manual versions right there. So not a cheap knife still, but you can spend a lot less than this particular one right here. Next up is a KnifeCenter exclusive closeout, a Cleaver version of the CRKT Minimalist with a D2 blade and orange G10 handles. Very, very cool. 2.1-inch blade. That Cleaver shape is kind of like that Arcform. It's a little bit stylish, a little bit harder use, although hard use is relative when we're talking a small blade like this, of course. But you've got a still very useful utilitarian blade right there. Breaking down cardboard, opening boxes. It's not pointy, but you can still use the tip right there pretty nicely. And the G10, of course, feels great. Even with my fatter fingers, those finger grooves work really well. Combined with the fob there, I always feel like I have a pretty firm grip on these knives, which is hard to pull off on a small knife and even harder to pull off with the degree of security on a small knife that you get with this design. Best part, apart from it being a really cool variation of one of the cooler blade shapes they offer on this knife, $30. Same price as the standard stainless steel versions of the Minimalist, which you're not going to get nearly the edge retention that you get on this black stonewashed D2, which is very cool. Of course, you're not going to get as much stainless properties in the D2, but the black stonewash, because it's kind of a forced patina in a way, is going to help a little bit in that regard. In any case, fantastically cool little knife. Next up, I've got just a couple of the CRKT mid-year releases. If you want to see more of that stuff, make sure to check out that Blade Show video we did last weekend. But I picked the two things that are speaking to me most out of that drop, and the first is another Minimalist, coming in at $30 for an 8CR series stainless steel blade. This is the Minimalist Spearpoint. I want to make sure I got the name right. They've got so many different blade shapes out there these days on the Minimalist, which is very cool. The other cool thing about this Spearpoint that makes it a little bit different is it's got thicker blade stock than any of the other Minimalists so far. Not a aggressively thick blade. I mean, we're still only talking like 0.15, but for a little more kind of girth in the hand and a little more kind of feeling of strength if you're using the blade for kind of outsized tasks, things that might be straining this small blade. At least you got a little extra there to push behind it. Blade length also 2.15, hollow ground in this case. Same thing with the Cleaver we just looked at. And a really cool fuller on this knife as well. Something cool to look at. You're not going to be finger flicking this open because it's a fixed blade, of course. But and then the handles here, it's a very micarta-like, but they call it green resin infused fiber handles. But it feels mostly like micarta. If you're familiar with what micarta feels like, you're not going to find something too out of bounds right here. Really cool little blade. Sheath on both of these Minimalists. It's hard plastic, set up for neck carry out of the box, but it does come with a small belt attachment too, which is very much appreciated. Next up is my favorite folder from the new drop, and quite honestly, it's a shape that is really kind of grabbing my attention and holding it too. This is the Flavio Okoma designed Attaboy. Really cool shape. I really dig the style, and I dig the utility behind it as well, and it's all down to this blade in my mind. D2 steel, 2 3/4 inch long, appropriately thick, not too thin, and you've got that high flat grind going on. Just a really cool utility shape right there. I'm really digging it. You still got plenty of belly going on, the tip's really nice. In addition to a small flipper, which we'll get to, you've got a thumb hole for opening as well, and you've got CRKT's deadbolt lock. Really cool finger safe style of operation, keeps those fingers out of the blade path. And this is an assisted opening knife, but you saw how easy it was to close that. And actually, we've got a perfect point of comparison here in that Kershaw Leek we showed earlier. Most assisted opening knives, when you go to close it, you start running into, in the case of the Leek, about halfway through the travel, pressure from the spring that builds up. That doesn't really build up, but it stays mostly the same until you push it all the way closed. The new CRKT system, rather than that, you do still start to get some resistance there at the halfway point, but it's much lower. And then when you get about right here, the pressure seems to go away, and then it even has a bias towards closure, which the other system does not. All in all, what that does is make it that much easier to use and a little less, I mean, you saw how easy that was, right? It's just done. Very nice. Would I prefer personally, a non-assisted knife? Yeah, probably, but at least this one, you have that advantage with it. Apart from that, we've got GRN handles with some onlays here in gray, also GRN. You've got a mostly deep carry pocket clip. You've got that nice lock. You've got D2 blade steel with a stone washed finish. I don't know if I did mention that.
Probably.
I'll mention it again. Very strong looking and compact knife, coming in about $100 right now. All right, next up we have another springy knife, but not a spring assisted. We have the latest version of the ProTech Bob Terzuola designed ATCF automatic knife, coming in at $480, so more expensive than that previous knife, but made in America. You've got excellent fit and finish. In fact, 2 different versions of this knife just won awards at the Blade Show this past weekend. One of them was Collaboration of the Year, I think. And then they did like a super fancy one that won a collector's grade thing. But standard version, this batch of the standard version, they're kind of doing different things with each run of the knife. Comes with G10 inlays on each side of the aluminum frame. You've got a mother of pearl firing button. And as is standard on all of this series of knives, we've got a Magna Cut blade coming in about 3.5 inches long. Magna Cut, of course, unites all 3 pillars of kind of primary knife characteristics together: strength, toughness, and stain resistance, without sacrificing one at the cost or at the benefit of the other 2, which is usually the case with any other steel out there. Very, very cool. And then, of course, a nice milled pocket clip there, which is true, or very, very true, I should say, to the original Terzuola designed clips on his customs of this knife. Closed up, I really like how the lines of the spine of the blade follow the lines of the handle there. And then you've got that iconic ProTech opening action and sound, and you've got the nice ramp from the spine there in the open position. So it works together in both regards. And then, of course, this is a kind of tactical knife first and foremost, at least how it was originally designed. But look at that blade, 3.5 inches, saber height, flat grind, swedge. Gonna do just about anything you need day to day too. All right, next up, and this one, quantities may be limited, or quantities are limited, I should say. So these may be sold out by the time this video posts, maybe not, but I wanted to show it. This is the Chaves Ultramar line Liberation Street. Very cool knife, $325. M390 blade, 3 3/8 inch long, contrasting grain on the satin finish for that blade, M390 steel. Am I saying steel's a lot? I did mention
knives, so.
G10 front scale with a bit of texture, titanium frame lock on the back. Now these are manufactured by Riot, and the way they do the frame locks here or the way they cut out the lock bar, I've always been impressed with these Chaves models because it is such a small, clean cut going on there. Not a, let's see if we have another, well here's even this Arcform, which is not a wide cut. You can see it's a fair bit wider than this guy right here, which is interesting because I think Riot makes this particular knife too, I think. It's all in how the customer specs out the knife when they give them to Riot, I guess. But very, very cool. Milled pocket clip with the iconic skull. And did this one, Thomas, do you remember if this one came with this second clip in the box?
It did.
So if you're not a fan of the big skull clip, there's something a little more subtle looking, which some folks out there will appreciate. So you can get your hands on this design without without billboarding what you're carrying in the pocket. And for me, this is one of my favorite Chaveses to open because I prefer the flipping action to the thumb studs on these knives. For me anyway, the thumb studs always are a little bit more hard to use, I should say. Most folks don't have any problem with them. It's probably just some peculiarity with my hand size, but in this case, the flipping action, as you can see, worked great. Ball bearings in the pivot, titanium frame lockup with the over travel arrestor there on the inside. Overall, just a really solid feeling knife. Next up, we have another knife that is made by Riot. This is a Liong Designs Model 18, an integral flipper. Check that out. And it's got a really sweet design, has a bit of shades of kind of old Loveless Fighter built into its frame. Very, very cool. Price on these is quite high. On this version here, $659. Although the cheaper version of this knife will only set you back at $599. That comes without inlays and a milled pattern instead. But what you're getting for that, one is that integral construction, and you're getting an S90V blade steel. Not a small S90V blade either. This is full 3 3/4 of an inch long. Pretty big sucker right there. The blade has a lot of grinding done on it too. You've got flat grind and a very long swedge with kind of a bead blasted look finish, but it's very fine. It's not like a rough, cheap looking bead blast at all. And then of course the satin flats. Pocket clip is milled. You've got a ceramic ball at the end, or I always say ceramic ball, but I'm never 100% positive if they're ceramic or not, but you've got that nice ball bearing at the end. Bolster style frame lock, ball bearings in the pivot, flipper, works great. The knife feels fantastic. And just like that ProTech we looked at a minute ago, both very clearly kind of tactical inspired designs, but both a little kind of fancier, but both knives that have a blade that is just going to work from a utility standpoint. I mean, very nice. Ton of blade length with a ton of edge retention with that S90V2. S90V2, is it new steel?
Probably not.
Probably not. But tons of performance here, tons of strength from the integral nature. Overall, just a very, very sleek looking blade. All right, next up we have another integral, not made by Riot though. This is a LionSteel, and it is an Ernie Emerson design too. It's not just something that uses the Emerson wave. This is actually an Emerson collaboration with LionSteel. Aluminum handles with integral construction as mentioned, and these come in about $200 for this particular version and a few of the other colors as well.
Has it got a name?
It does. It's the L.E.One. There we go.
Good job.
LionSteel and Emerson L.E.One. L.E. LionSteel Emerson. First collaboration, one. Anyway, it makes sense. And it's a really cool knife too. Magna cut blade here as well. Very, very cool. 3 1/4 inches long, and you've got kind of that signature dropped tip right there at the end, as opposed to the super, super needle sharp tip that you see on some other Emersons as well. Gives it a little bit more strength. And of course, with the toughness of Magna cut, you've got that behind it as well. And then you combine it with some LionSteel touches as well. For instance, the crown spine, the nice finish, the removable flipper tab, which is pretty cool. It nestles right in there when it's in the open position, but when closed, you can see it sticking out right there. But if you'd rather not have that to get in the way of your drawing motion of this knife, you could take that out, and you've got that Emerson wave, which as you're pulling it out of your pocket, catch your hem, and you've got your pocket deployment right there. Lockup is achieved by a frame lock. You can see we've got a steel interface there on the end. Pocket clip folded over that is reversible for either side. The red aluminum looks great, it feels good, and my favorite part is this treatment of the ring section. Because it's integral, there's no kind of scales ending, so no kind of transitions there. It just melts perfectly into that finger style grip. Very cool to look at and very comfortable to hold as well. Next up, we have a restock of a knife that was in and out very quickly when it first came out. The newest version, I should say, of the Kizer Cormorant. If you weren't a fan of the original X-style milling on the first version of this knife, these 3 parallel lines might be a little more to your liking. Actually, this isn't the most recent version because we did have the that one with like the PlayStation buttons there at one point.
That's true.
So there's that one too. But this knife comes in about 120 bucks, 3¼ inch blade of S35 VN steel, 2-tone G10 handles there, deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible, and that button lock, which travels completely inside the path of the blade. So you don't have any external or any extra external stop pin. The button lock itself, the post going through there, acts in that manner. It gives you a nice clean look there from the front. And I think the reason this knife has been so successful, because it is kind of an unusual shape, still a useful shape, but definitely something a little bit out there, a little bit different, is if you're looking for a knife that can do all of the that adult fidget factor stuff that some folks really love out there, this knife has got it all. You've got that thumb hole, which you can use with your thumb. You can do that spidey flick, the middle finger flick. You've got the button lock, which can be pressed down, and you can use motion of your wrist to open or close the knife. You've also got these 2 little dog ears at the top that act as both a regular conventional flipper and a front flipper. So you can do that, you can do the regular flip, you can do all of that fun stuff and still have a very useful blade overall. Saber grind, flat geometry, nice usable tip. You know, if you ignore the way the spine is going on here, the rest of the edge side of the knife is fairly conventional, and you're gonna get the utility out of it for that reason. Very, very cool knife. Next up, we have the newest generation of the James brand Ellis coming in about the same price as that Kizer, about $119 right now. For that, this is a slip joint knife, so it's non-locking, but it is kind of a pared down minimalist multi-tool, although it doesn't have a bottle opener, so can we officially call it a multi-tool?
I won't.
Thomas won't. You could open a bottle with the pry bar tip / fat screwdriver on the end with the right technique, but of course it's not designed for it in any case. But you got a nice, robust pair of scissors. Now, let's talk about that first, because I like it. Very strong feeling. The spring action results from the back spring itself, or the back spacer leaf spring itself on the slip joint mechanism. And I really like the little folded over section of metal here on the end, because if you're kind of really cutting something that's giving you a little bit of trouble, rather than pushing down on just the thin sheet of steel, you've got a little extra padding, a little extra leverage. It's gonna hurt you a little bit less when you're pushing down on those skizzors. Yeah, action feels nice. And then the blade itself, you've got easy one-hand opening thanks to the cutout in the blade, appropriately thin blade stock, a flat saber grind going on, 2.6 inches long, and Sandvik's 12C27 stainless steel. Very easy to sharpen, takes a very keen edge, and fairly tough too, which is quite nice. Wire pocket clip, not reversible, but since this is not a one-hand opening knife, that's a little bit less important that it is not reversible. It doesn't really affect things too much. Yeah, pared down, just a little bit of the essentials. You can also get this in a partially serrated blade if you wish. Speaking of slip joints, I've got a couple of cases here, only one of which is a slip joint actually. I've got the SHOT Show 2022 edition of the Tony Bow's Sowbelly, $83 for this. Comes with essentially a Stockman set of tools, but it is Tony Bow's Sowbelly version of the Stockman. Think of it that way. You've got your spay blade here on the end, and that's why I don't call blades like this reverse tanta, because it's always been the spay blade. Thomas.
We'll fight later.
He stares at him accusingly. Spay blade, really cool, almost a serpentine-ish clip point blade. And then of course the sheepsfoot blade there on the other side. Very, very nice set of blades taken together, and a very cool shape too. Something a little bit different than a more straightforward Stockman, and I really like it. And green and black, or are they just calling it green? Yeah, green and black micarta for the handles. Looks very nice. And we've also got a green and black micarta on this Copperlock as well, about $78. And with that, you get the advantage of a mid-mounted lockback, so you've got a little extra safety if you would prefer that. Blade a little bit over 3 inches. Eyeball in here is probably about 3 1/4-ish. Full flat grind on that clip point shape. Easy opening with that long fuller or long cutout notch, slot, whatever you want to call it, on the end of that blade. With that grind and that thin of a blade steel, this thing has always been a fantastic slicer. And now you can get it in micarta as well, which is very cool. All right, next up, we've got a couple of kind of new old models from Mcusta. Some of these have been models that have been out, and then they were out of stock and unavailable for a while, and they're bringing some things back with some kind of tweaks. And the thing I like about Mcusta is they do things a little bit their own way. Some might say they're a little, I don't even want to say it that way. They're doing something a little bit different, a little bit outside the kind of heartbeat of the mainstream of the industry, which I like because they're coming up with, and have come up with historically, really cool, really useful things that you're not going to really find much else out there quite like it. Look at a couple of them right now, but make sure to check out the full Mcusta page. We'll leave a link below. This is the MC-193C. It is a Higonokami style friction folder. 136 for this one right now. And you've got a laminated VG10 core blade. It's kind of Sanmei construction or Sanmai construction with 2 layers of different steel on the outside and that VG10 core. You get a little bit of that wavy look, gives you that kind of faux hamon thing going on. 3 1/4-inch blade, really cool. Kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, Thomas? Modified Wharncliffe blade shape. Actually, Leek, again, coming into play. Anyway, I said friction folder. Did I say friction folder?
Probably.
It's not actually quite a friction folder. This is actually one of those detent joints or double detent style of knives. You can hear that click when that finger tab gets to that position. So that's something I don't remember them doing before. So that's pretty cool. You don't get any kind of like finger safety if the blade were to close here from the front side, but if you're holding this knife in a typical grip, your thumb is going to be putting pressure on that opening tab, which is going to give you a little bit of extra aid right there. Really cool handles here. It's a black and green laminated hardwood, but you get little hints of that green kind of popping through the tone there, and the green on this tied bit here at the end kind of pulls that out a little bit more. Just a cool looking knife. I mean, not something you see too often quite like this, which is pretty darn cool. Also included with this knife is this very ornate decorative pouch, kind of a pocket slip type of thing. And you can actually tuck this underneath the strings here at the front, or the cordage at the front, with the locking tab or the opening tab kind of sticking out a little bit. They give you a little bit of offset to the flap to aid right there. Very cool. Next, we've got a small kind of everyday style fixed blade. Awesome. The MC-FWD-G Platinum Label Slimline Fixed Blade. In pictures, I was a little kind of put off by the fact that the inlays didn't follow the edge of the tang. They were quite the same shape, but in person, I am quite taken with this knife. There's a lot on this table today I'm quite taken with, actually. This is a sweet little useful shape that is just kind of decked out to the nines. Like, there's detail everywhere on this knife. And the price reflects that accordingly, $396 for it. For that, you're getting also a kind of VG10 Sanmei. I think Sanmei is mostly correct Japanese pronunciation, but we Americans say Sanmai.
I'm gonna say Sunny D.
It's not how this works. So you get that steel construction, but check out the detailing. It's got almost a like crystallizing ice look to the blade. Very, very cool. We're just calling it an acid etched blade, but it is more than words kind of convey. It's like the words as simple as that convey. It's really cool. We've got some faceting along the entirety of the spine there at the back. And then on the finger side, the finger grippy side, it is crowned and polished. Very nice details. And the handles, another kind of stabilized wood. You get kind of reddish to green gradation on it. Other side's a little bit different, but the same kind of colors. So cool. And such a little useful shape. Just everyday utility, gentleman's steak knife perhaps. And comes with a fairly simple leather sheath, but man, I would be proud to carry that knife. And last but not least, we have a locking folder. This is the Forge Small Tsuchi knife. Pronouncing that incorrectly, I can almost guarantee it. 132 for this one. And you've got a VG10 core Damascus blade here. You can see the pattern welded layers of steel on either side of that VG10 core. Very cool, 2 3/4 inch crown spine. What do we want to call that stainless steel handle there? Hammered? Looks awesome. Tip down pocket clip, frame lock, very slim in the pocket, feels great, even flicks well. I was actually not expecting it to do that, and I didn't do it earlier. I just did it here on the spot, and whoop, I messed it up that time. It's kind of a small knife for my hands, but man, that works really well. Another nice, useful little blade shape overall, and something to be just a little bit different at the same time. All right, folks, that's all I have to show you right now. Make sure to let me know what you thought in the comments, and to get your hands on any of these knives, links are in the description, as always, that will take you over to KnifeCenter.com. Don't forget about our Knife Rewards program as well, because you might as well be earning some free money when you put an order in for one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we're signing off. See you next time.